Hi, I'm Roberta. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to talk about toasting or roasting nuts. Now you'll often see it in a recipe and it's usually just the ingredients, peanuts, toasted, or pine nuts, roasted. But what exactly does it mean? Well, you've got two options. You can roast them in the oven in a baking tray, or you can toast them in a frying pan over the heat. I wouldn't recommend putting them in the toaster. I don't think that works. Now, I use both methods. If you're toasting them in the oven, I would say 5 to 10 minutes at 180 degrees. If it's something small like coconut or these pine nuts, I find it easier to do in a pan. Just keep stirring them, keep an eye on them, and you'll get an even colour. If you try and do that with something bigger and more irregular shaped like peanuts or whole almonds or these cashews, I find it's impossible to get an even colour. So that's when I go for the oven version. Let's pop our pine nuts on the stove in our frying pan and I'll show you what I mean. So I have my frying pan over a medium heat. It's already nice and warm. In with our pine nuts. And now we're just going to keep a close eye on them. You don't have to stir them absolutely constantly, but don't walk away and leave them because there's a lot of oil there and they will burn quickly. Now after about 3 minutes, you'll start to smell them getting toasty and you can see the sheen of the oil coming out of them, a little touch of colour. So now we do need to keep stirring them almost constantly. So after about 5 minutes, you can see they're starting to get a bit of colour, and once they colour quickly. So keep stirring them for another minute or two. So there we go. I think they are as coloured as I want them and I can smell that lovely toasty aroma. Let's get them out of the pan. So the last step that is important is get them out of that hot pan as quickly as you can once they're ready, because they will keep cooking otherwise. So here we have them, our toasted pine nuts. I find it easier to do them in the pan rather than heat up the oven. But of course, if the oven was already on for something else, you could certainly do them in the oven. If you're doing them in the oven, which I did with these cashews, about 5 minutes at 180 degrees gets them to there, and 10 minutes, if you want a good dark roast, gets them to there. Now, there's one more thing I want to show you, and that's hazelnuts. Because if hazelnuts haven't been blanched and they have the skin on, and they're the nuts that most often come like this, you can toast them really well on quite a high heat to burn that skin and then get it off. Back to the stove and I'll show you how to do that. So for our hazelnuts, we want to get our pan good and hot, in with our nuts, and we'll just give them a couple of minutes to start, but we're going to give them a stir quite constantly. Now that's only been about 30 seconds and you can see the skins are already starting to burn, which is what we want. So we want fairly regular stirring, keep them moving around. We don't want to burn the nut meat, we just want to burn those skins. You can always adjust the heat, turn it back down to medium if they're toasting too quickly. Now you have to be quite brave and really burn the skin, because then you can see what's happening with that guy. The skin actually starts to come off once it's burnt. So if you get any like that, you can certainly rescue them and put them aside and keep going with the others. Okay, so that's only been about 3 minutes at a medium-high heat. You can see they're pretty well burnt. Let's go back to the bench and get rid of those skins. So here we have our hazelnuts with their burnt skin. While they're nice and hot, we just want to wrap them up in a tea towel, give them a really vigorous rub, and those burnt skins are going to come off and leave us with lovely toasted hazelnuts underneath. Now it's a bit of a messy job, but it's the best way I know to get the skins off the hazelnuts. You'll have a little bit left behind, that's fine, but here they are. Toasty, almost skinless, and you can pull those ones out and go back and give the remaining ones a bit more of a rub. Now you can give the last stubborn few a bit of a rub through your fingers to get rid of as much of the skin as possible, and there we go. So here we have it, our roasted and skinned hazelnuts, our pan roasted pine nuts, and our oven roasted cashews. Just one more thing I want to say to you about nuts, and that is buy them in small quantities, store them in a Ziploc bag, and put them in your fridge. There's a lot of oil in here. It does go rancid quickly, and you'll get much better shelf life out of them if you store them in the fridge. Happy cooking.